Ever since I heard Connie Lindsay speak at Benedictine University last year, I knew that she was the woman to be our keynoter this year. Connie's forthright approach to identifying issues and moving forward to change them in positive ways presents a compelling edict to us all. Her long list of accomplishments, including her current tenure as National Board President of the Girl Scouts of the USA, an organization near and dear to our hearts, her rise to prominence at Northern Trust, and her deep-seated belief that corporations have social responsibility all contribute to her popularity as a speaker. We are thrilled to welcome Connie L. Lindsay, Executive Vice President, Northern Trust.
Thank you, Gail, and good afternoon. Thank you for inviting me to participate in this wonderful recognition and celebration of this accomplished group of women. And I was saying to the women at our table, I like this world. I like a world of a company that when it's gone through hard economic times, it has the spirit and the presence and the big heart to say, we're going to make our employees okay. That takes courage. I like that world. I like a world where women are large and in charge, where we are taking care of one another, where we're not concerned about what we're wearing, but what's wearing on us. I like that world. And I like a world when young girls can see us doing the things that we believe we are called to do in support of an economy that needs our brilliance to grow, in a world that needs our caring hearts to know that peace is always better than conflict and that being wealthy is not a bad thing. I like this world. Longfellow said, the talent of success is nothing more than doing what you can do well and doing well whatever you do without a thought of fame. Success powered by women. Good afternoon again. I'm Connie Lindsay, and I am a Girl Scout. I'm also acutely aware that I'm standing between you and chocolate hour. So I promise, and I know at least one of my guests here today loves chocolate as much as she loves her college-age son and God. So I promise to adhere to advice given to me years ago by one of my mentors who implored me to follow the 3 B's of any good public speech. And that is to be good, be brief, and be gone. So I hope to hit at least 2 of those this afternoon. I do want to acknowledge the successful and very accomplished women who are here today from Northern Trust. They represent the excellence and friendship that I've had the privilege of experiencing throughout my 18-year career at the firm. So I would like to ask all of the women from Northern Trust to please stand. In a speech delivered in 1851 at the Women's Convention in Akron, Ohio, Sojourner Truth, former slave and abolitionist, said, "If the first woman God ever made was strong enough to turn the world upside down all by herself, these women together ought to be able to turn it back and right side up again." I think the mission of NAWBO to propel women business owners into spheres of social, economic, and political spheres of power is a wonderful example of what Sojourner Truth meant. She suggested women ought to be able to turn this world right side up again. And I think where we are in our nation's history, us women need to be turning the world right side up again. In the second annual State of Women-Owned Businesses report that Gail referred to by American Express, as of 2011, it is estimated that there are over 8.1 million women-owned businesses in the United States, generating nearly $1.3 trillion in revenues and employing nearly 7.7 million people. Between 1997 and 2011, when the number of businesses in the United States increased by 34%, the number of women-owned firms increased by 50%, a rate of 1.5 times the national average. Overall, women-owned firms have done better than their male counterparts. Now, we do love the brothers in the room, so that's fine. We need you all. It's important. but they've done better than their male counterparts over the past 14 years. The number of men-owned firms, which represent 51% of all U.S. firms, grew by only 25% between 1997 and 2011, half the rate of women-owned firms. Employment in men-owned firms actually declined by nearly 5% over the past 14 years, while revenues grew by just 33%. Both well below the growth seen among women-owned and all U.S. firms. And while there are still obstacles and opportunities in growing women-owned business in the 100-employee and $1 million range, I think women really are setting the world right side up again. When I asked Gail what might be an appropriate message for this occasion, she suggested that I share with you a bit about my professional journey and my passion for leadership and living a life of service. A professional journey that has included a dystopia of discrimination, the pains of prejudice, and the illusion of inclusion. And yet, I still believe I can turn the world right side up. Thank you. And so I stand here today a better person, not a bitter person, a woman of wisdom and a warrior for equality for everyone, a beneficiary of good mentors, sponsors, and coaches that helped me break down barriers to wonderful new beginnings. As a wise person once said, the first half of life is discovering the script, and the second half is actually writing it and owning it. I am writing my script, and I'm owning it. As one author said, I have been scarred by the struggle, but I am truly transformed by hope. I understand that to whom much is given, much is required. And so as I thought about this talk this afternoon in preparation for the speech, I was flooded with ideas, and typically when I write these talks, they never come the month before the invitation. It is just the way the Spirit, I think, works with me, and I get the right talk at about midnight. So much to my husband's chagrin, I've got Blackberries, iPads, computers, and all kinds of stuff glowing in the dark. And so these two questions, I thought, what are the compelling questions that I think about that I could ask or that we might ask ourselves? And two came to mind. The first was, how do I want the world to be different because I lived in it? How do I want the world to be different because I lived in it? Because God loved me enough to give me body and a breath to do something. The second question is, how do I want to be different because I have lived in the world? How do I want to be different because I have lived in the world? In the book Falling Upward, the author helps direct my response to the first question by suggesting that there are at least two major tasks to human life. The first task is to build a strong container or identity. The second is to find the contents that the container was meant to hold. That resonated with me as I walked through life with my mother, who was diagnosed with Alzheimer's 3 years ago. Her container, her identity, is slowly slipping away from her. But what she has been allowed to hold is she remembers every one of her children, something about each one of us. Her container holds the Lord's Prayer that no matter what the rest of her may be thinking, she can say, Our Father. Her container holds the kind of love and compassion that no matter where I go traveling in the world, she says, Doll baby, when are you coming home? Why didn't you call me when you landed? Because you know my prayers keeps that plane in the sky. She has a container, her identity, even in the midst of such profound loss and sadness, which teaches and informs me every day that whatever we're writing on the hearts of young girls and Girl Scouts of one another, that container, that identity will be so important later on, figuring out what it was meant to hold. And so now it's time for group participation. I really, as a Girl Scout and all my life having been in Girl Scout troops, love the idea of audience participation. So wake your neighbor up if they've fallen asleep after that fabulous lunch and say, we're going to have group participation. One of the things that I talk about is many of us suffer from intention deficit disorder. We are card-carrying members of someday, I'm going to, I will, perhaps, maybe, if only, or just. So are you ready for the quiz? Here we go. 5 birds are sitting on a wire. 1 intends to fly away. How many are left? 5 birds are... Smart audience. You are turning the world upside down. We often judge others based on their actions and ourselves based on our intentions. Intentions are not actions. For example, I intend to work out every day, every morning at 5 o'clock. I think about it, the alarm goes off, I lie down, it goes away. So my lesson has been, my intention must capture my attention in order for me to do something. So this intention deficit disorder from which so many of us suffer must capture our attention. So my attention has now been around getting up when it's time and moving. My life's journey and my professional experiences have led me to the following 6 leadership principles and the way I would respond to the 2 questions. How do I want the world to be different because I have lived in it? Number 1, be willing to stand alone. Stop worrying about accumulating stuff you can touch and find stuff that touches you. Corporate decisions require courage, conviction, and commitment. And I often say that my conduct, my character, and my conversation must comport, and yes, I do love alliteration, to being willing to stand alone on issues that matter. Issues of diversity. Asking why are there not women in certain areas, even of our business, and we've done well at our firm, but continuing to push and to agitate around issues of fairness and representation. What our Girl Scouts learn about when we tell them you can be or do anything that you want. It is not the title that you carry. It is what you carry with you and how you can make a difference in the world. To live and walk in integrity. The intellect actually exists to serve the wisdom of the body. In our intellectually driven society, however, it leads us to believe that it is the other way around. And so we wait for the next drug or technological breakthrough, thinking it will save us. We have gotten confused and don't understand sometimes that net worth is not the same as self-worth. Even research shows that in the end, the wisdom of the heart always wins. EKG signals coming from the heart are 60 times stronger than the EEG signal from brain waves. In the conflict between the intellect and the heart always wins. And as someone said before, a healed, joyful life is the greatest gift we can give to anyone, most importantly, ourselves. And lest anyone think that these behaviors, these views, these principles make us too weak to work in business, make us too emotional to analyze financial statements, to negotiate good deals, to understand what it means that the economy is at a tipping point and how we need to make a difference. It makes us better, not bitter. It makes us have a holistic approach to, if I win, you too can win. It takes me from my days of when I had to wear perky bows and navy blue and wouldn't dare wear checked shoes to a presentation. It takes us beyond that to say it is all of that, the totality of that, that really allows us to serve and serve in a meaningful way. Thirdly is to lift as I climb. I know that I did not create or make myself. I know that there are people standing with me, around me, and there are people on whose shoulders I stand. The Sojourner Truths of the world, the women at the Northern Trust, my beloved mother. All of these people who make a difference. And so as I am climbing, I am lifting. I have a passion for mentoring, trusted advisors, for coaching, how do we get there, and for sponsorship. One of the themes of our Girl Scout movement in our 100th year of Girl Scouting is our cause campaign, To Get Her There, which is a play on the word together there. Because to get her there, the girls in this room and the women in this room who may have a dream in their heart needs to know that we're going to help get her there. That when she has moments of fear or insecurity, we're not going to ridicule or tell her why it cannot be done. We're going to say to her what my Girl Scout troop leader said to me, a little girl, 2 ponytails in inner city Milwaukee. You matter, Connie, and don't you let anyone tell you that you don't. Your zip code does not dictate the places you go, the place that you ought to be able to live, how you ought to earn. Your education, your passion should do that for you, and we love you enough to make sure you get there. And I know all of you agree with me, for the young women in your life. And yes, for each of us, we will get her there. NAWBO has gotten so many there. And I'm just so pleased and proud to be a part of it. And we're looking at national relationships for Girl Scouts and NAWBO because you represent what we tell our girls they can do and should be. Girl Scouts is 100 years old, and I'm proud to say that NAWBO has created the Badge to Business. So there's a partnership that we're working on where young girls can look at women-owned businesses and understand what it takes to have their own business. The best way is to show the way. You may not remember what I've told you. You may not necessarily recall what you've seen, but you'll remember how someone made you feel. And when we tell a girl that she can be and do anything, that you can be nice, you can be kind, you can be loving, and still be a formidable businesswoman. That it is not this myth of scarcity that drives us towards holding on too tightly to what we have. It's a myth. If we believe that there isn't enough or we're not enough, then we hold on tightly. But if we believe that there is abundance in our connectivity to one another, that we are all inextricably linked in a single garment of destiny, as Dr. King said, and that injustice anywhere is injustice everywhere, we can get her there. So we build girls of courage, confidence, and character who are making the world a better place. And in working on that badge, I have to tell you now, Bo, our Girl Scout cookie program is $750 million in revenue for our movement across this country. So you've got some inherent salespeople working with you. You've got the best. You've got some marketing geniuses, the likes of which I've never seen. And I have the privilege of traveling the country and watching girls creating their Gold Award, working on projects that truly are making a difference. And 4, how do I want to be different because I have lived in the world? Listen twice as much as I speak. We've all heard it. God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we could listen twice as much as we speak. I often say to people, are you listening or waiting to speak? We've all met those individuals. You start talking and they're pulling the words out of your mouth before the thought happens. Some of us may be afflicted with that disease. And listening is an aerobic activity. So if you're listening well and you're listening for thought and reason in ways that you can engage, you can't be waiting to speak because the mind, as phenomenal as it is, really should focus on one thought at a time. So really listening twice as much as we speak. To live fearlessly and with accountability. Living fearlessly, not foolishly. I often say to people, I'm pretty fearless and pretty fierce in pursuing things that I want and caring about others and so on. But that does not mean that I would jump from a plane without a parachute. Fearlessly simply means that there are a set of values that you believe in and that you hold near and dear. And you are indefatigable in your pursuit of living in a way that, for me, pleases my Creator and makes a difference in the world. Accountability. Own your stuff. I see it sometimes in corporate America where decisions get made and there is a big decision to happen. And if it works out well, it's like Henny Penny. Everybody says, I helped bake the bread. If it doesn't work out so well, you get this whooshing sound of everybody moving away from the idea. That accountability says, this is my decision. I made it. I own it. And I'm responsible for the consequences. I'm always going to do my best. And sometimes my best is not always the same. But I'm confident and okay with that. And we develop that confidence when we have evidence that shows accountability works. It's what makes a difference in corporate America. If we think about ethics and behaviors and when things fall down, it is when accountability falls apart. It is when integrity runs and hides, when challenge might be the better way. So the dreams and aspirations of the honorees that we've had the privilege of seeing today really underscores accountability, this living fearlessly, not waiting for someone to tell you you're okay or that you're enough. And I support our honorees and the work of NAWBO for that. And finally, and most important to me, is to connect my soul to my role. In the work that I have been privileged to do in my life, and I started in telecommunications and finance, that's my background. I have had many wonderful job opportunities at the Northern Trust in most of our business units. But it's always that connection of my soul to my role. Am I bringing my whole self? to whatever it is that I have to do. If I have to change when I leave 50 South LaSalle in order to engage with my beloved Girl Scouts or any other initiative, there's some dissonance there that I believe would create dis-ease. I work for a firm whose values mirror mine in so very many ways. The connection of my soul says that I get to do volunteer work that I love and yet still work for a firm that is making a difference. And now in my current role as the head of corporate social responsibility for Northern Trust, it's looking at what we call the triple bottom line of corporate social responsibility: people, planet, and profit. Thank you. So it is not mutually exclusive for a corporation to care deeply about the impact on the environment, the way that we source resources in the value chain, from cups in the cafeteria to the way that we utilize energy, all of those things. At Northern Trust, we have an Energy Star rating at our headquarters building because we have done the work to ensure that we're utilizing energy wisely. We've had an on-site daycare for 20 years at our firm, long before others were doing that. We still have that daycare. We now have children who grew up in that daycare center who are working at Northern Trust. It's fascinating. It's fascinating to see them. And so it is the gift that I've been given to connect my soul with my role, to know that it is very important that we make all of our financial targets. Our earnings came out the other day and they were very, very strong. So I'm proud to say that. That's the profit part of it, because good, strong corporations help make good, strong communities. And the license or permission, in my opinion, that corporations get from the community is that you will do no harm to the communities where you do business, and that we hold ourselves accountable to understand that it is the people. It is the people inside and outside the corporation that can make all the difference to the way that we are doing business. We have to be courageous enough to challenge ourselves when we digress from those paths, that we know being profitable is important and interesting, but what matters most is how we get to that profitability. It is how we ensure that people have decent places to live, that working mothers have appropriate benefits so that when their child is sick, they are not concerned about losing their job, and for men as well, but certainly for women who are more affected by these kinds of decisions. It is important to recognize that there are differences in the economic wherewithal of women who can afford to work outside the home with help and those who cannot. It is important for us to understand that the way that we grow this country by having more women and boys in science, technology, engineering, and math is ensuring that there is an education system that challenges our children with a rigorous way of learning, but then supports them in that view. And it is like I was, the little girl in the inner city of Milwaukee, telling them your zip code does not determine where you get to live, work, and what the world has to see in you. It is that corporate social responsibility. It is not corporate welfare. It is us saying this is what matters to all of us. If we don't take care of the planet, where will we live? It is understanding the implications of every action to what we do. It is the $14 million that Northern Trust gave philanthropically in 2011 that we measure the outcomes. Part of my role is to ensure that when we give a dollar, we understand how we're impacting the community. That's the key part of social responsibility. And so in closing, and we're going to pick up time, so hopefully the chocolate is ready. We'll have some Q&A. But in closing, I really do want to leave you with these words from George Bernard Shaw, which I think really encapsulates my view and very much of my philosophy on life. This is the true joy in life, the being used for a purpose, recognized by yourself as a mighty one, the being a force of nature instead of a feverish, selfish little clod of ailments and grievances, complaining that the world will not devote itself to making you happy. I am of the opinion that my life belongs to the whole community, and as long as I live, it is my privilege to do for it whatever I can. I want to be thoroughly used up when I die, for the harder I work, the more I live. I rejoice in life for its own sake. Life is no brief candle for me. It is a sort of splendid torch which I have got hold of for but a moment, and I want to make it burn as brightly as possible before handing it on to future generations. Thank you.